Okay, so I'm gonna give it a couple more minutes and wait until we have more people uh, in the meeting.
Give me a second, please.
Okay, so we have 10 people in the meeting. So it's 3 o'clock here in Vancouver. Let's get started. So welcome everybody. Thank you for coming today to our event. This event is titled Unleash Your Mental Health and Transform Your Life with Zofia Dove, who is a palliative communications expert and a best-selling author. So let's get started. So first, I would like to take a moment and reflect on our connection to the land and thank the traditional guardians of the land, which we at SWIST Vancouver live and and work. This event is being hosted in Vancouver. Um, on the unceded ancestral and traditional lands of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, Seychelles, Squamish, and the indigenous people of Turtle Island. I would like to also acknowledge that today is um, Orange Shirt Day and a day for truth and reconciliation for the indigenous people of Canada. So for this event, we have some housekeeping rules. So please note that today's event will be video recorded and that we keep our phones on silent during the duration. And if we have any questions, please put them in the chat box and hopefully we can answer any of your questions at the very end. And we will also have some closing remarks at the end. For more events, please visit our website, swist.ca/events. We have events going on throughout the year, so please check our website and join in. So I'm going to now shift this over to Zofia to start the event.
Give me a second, please.
So you want to click play?
Yes. There we go. Let's do it. Hello, everyone. My name is Zofia Dove, and as you know, I worked in the healthcare system internationally for over 30 years. I addressed my patients originally from physiotherapy point of view, since that was my education, primary education. But in no time, I realized that it was the mental states of my patients that I needed to address before I actually had any physical results as to physiotherapy goals. And over years, it expanded with fascinating results. I would like to share with you some stories about my patients and what humor brought and did to them, and how addressing my patients' mental health had profound influence on the healing journey. But before this, I want to ask you, what skill did you acquire during self-quarantine? Well, for me, it was actually going into unknown. It was into traveling to the province, Manitoba, in which I live, and creating videos of various beautiful places. And this is directly linked to the humor and what I have to share with you. The story of Frank are very interesting. Frank was my patient in intensive care unit. I did come to Frank's bedside. He was in intensive care on all kind of life supports machines, if you will, but he was conscious at times. And after I did some exercises with him, I would leave his presence and I would rub my small pinky finger around his, and I would say, pinky hug, Frank, pinky hug. This routine established itself, and I kept repeating it regardless if he was conscious or he was not really communicating with me, not even his eyes were open. But one day I finished the exercises and I left his presence. I was almost at the door when I looked over, and there was Frank. He was giving me a finger, the pinky one. This moment showed me how powerful the playfulness and the communication through gesture was, that he, even though seemed to be totally unaware of what I was doing, was fully aware of what I was doing with him and giving him the pinky hug, because obviously the day when I forgot, he extended his finger and I returned and gave him pinky hug, and he smiled and I smiled. John's story is a little bit different. John experienced stroke after heart surgery, and his right arm wasn't working at all. At that time, I realized that whistling, walking around and whistling brings me a lot of joy. When I was a small girl, I was told that I shouldn't be behaving like this, so I think I stopped doing this. But at some point, I realized that whistling is something that brings me joy. So my patients would know that I was coming down a hallway because I was whistling as I was walking to their rooms. And one day I walked into John's room because we were to do exercises on his paralyzed hand, and I forgot to stop whistling in the hallway. So I apologized to him because obviously his room was his space. And I said, John, I'm sorry about it, but whistling gives me so much joy. And I said, I do this odd thing these days. I said, do you do something odd? And John nodded his head. And I said, what is it, John? And John wiggled his ears. We both laughed and continued exercises. I had to go on holidays for 2 weeks and I was absent. During my absence, someone else was doing the exercise with John. I returned after my holidays to his bedside, and the first thing John said to me, Zofia, my fingers are not working anymore, because in the process of us working together, they were starting to resume the function. I said, what do you mean they stopped? It's possible. He said, yes, they stopped moving. So during my absence, people were coming. They were going through the same routine, the same exercises. They followed them to the T. And I said, do you still wiggle your ears? And he said, yes. He wiggled his ears. We started laughing. I touched his hand. We started moving his fingers, and the function started returning. It made me realize how powerful humor is, that it has literally impact on our physical.
Recording in progress.
What is having a sense of humor? It is not about being a stand-up comedian or clown. It is about being lighthearted, playful, and fully engaged with the people around us. For whatever reason, I can't change my slide. Let's see what happened. What is mental health organization? What is mental health by the World Health Organization? I Googled it today, to be honest, to find out what is the stand on World Health Organization on mental health. Mental health, by the description of World Health Organization, is a state of well-being in which an individual realizes his or her own ability, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively, and is able to make contribution to his/her community. Interestingly enough, today I had a conversation with Catherine, who is a very successful CEO, who employed hundreds of people in her organization. And we had conversation with her about where she was in her career and life journey a few years ago when her business was thriving. Interestingly enough, Catherine, with all this, what World Health Organization describes to us as being mental health, felt not necessarily, even though she did meet all these criteria for health, for mental health, she was individual who realized her own ability. She was able to cope with stress. You can only imagine, as a CEO of thriving company, she had many problems and stressors on her plate. She worked very productively. She had a very thriving organization, and she was contributing to the community she was in. And yet, in her own words, as she described them to me today, she felt unfulfilled and literally empty. Catherine worked with me during the COVID, and today she is experiencing joyous, happy, as she would describe, truly fulfilling life. And we'll get back to Catherine a little bit later. Research shows that people who use humor are happier, are paid more, and experience less stress and are more productive. Study always shows that that humor helps with change. So when we are going through stages of life when change is present, like in my patient's reality, humor is very helpful because it boosts brain power. It is a compassionate tool, improves memory retention, impacts cohesiveness of a group, increases motivation, productivity, improves decision-making, and boosts creativity and out-of-box thinking. I don't know if you've been ever interviewed by anyone, but I believe that humor has place even at the time when we are going through stressful situations like being interviewed. Never ask a woman who is eating an ice cream straight from the carton how she's doing. I personally was that woman. I experienced a chapter in my life which was very stressful. Something that many people go through around COVID time, I would say, when life is being derailed by the circumstances, that what we planned is not happening anymore, that what we worked for end up crumbling down. This stressful time of mine, I was eating ice cream from the boxes to soothe my stress. And a friend of mine, colleague of mine at the hospital, asked me if I would be interested to go to laughing yoga session. I thought it was rather inappropriate timing for her to ask me to participate in laughter sessions because I had nothing to laugh about in my life. And yet, reluctantly, I did go into that session. The session of laughing yoga put us through very illogical activities. And at the very end of the session, I burst into uncontrollable laughter. It was actually after that session that I realized in a situation prior to that, a few weeks earlier, when I was playing with my children, there was a moment when I was supposed to laugh and I opened my mouth. And as I opened my mouth, there was no sound that came out of me. I realized that I'm unable to laugh. And that brought attention to me. Hence, I took on that invitation to go to laughing yoga. What did laughing yoga do for me? I searched and researched about the power of laughter and how it contributes and impacts us in a positive way. And I learned that through laughing, the cortisol stress hormone was lowered and my blood pressure was lowered. I actually shifted my whole perception of the situation and the stress level that I was experiencing lowered through that very simple activities at laughing yoga. Many of you probably heard about it, that there is a great dose of amazing hormones and substances created in our brain when we are laughing. One of them being dopamine, which increases focus, concentration, motivation, oxytocin, which elicits trust, it's nurturing hormone, and bonding hormone. There was a question when someone asked me what laughter, having baby, and having sex have in common. And what they have in common is production of oxytocin in our brain, which is bonding, and hormone, which is eliciting trust. Serotonin, which elicits happy thoughts, stimulates production and reduces anxiety. And endorphins, we all know, are mood elevators and more powerful than morphine when it comes to pain. There is a story of a journalist who was experiencing very rare illness, and he intentionally put humorous stories, and he was watching movies, comedies, and he laughed uncontrollably for hours, and to everybody's surprise and shock, against what the science was saying, his condition reversed and he actually healed. That's how powerful humor is. And that is what I witnessed countless times in interactions with my patients, how a little bit of a humor shifted my patients, how it was instantaneously affecting the physical abilities, and how powerful of a communicational tool humor was, and how it was affecting not just the physical, but the mental states of my patients. And as I practiced more and more, and with the fascinating results, and there's numerous stories that I can show you and tell you at different occasions, but I want to concentrate on what I found out was behind the humor. So I started researching even more as to what was happening in my patients and why would they shift so drastically. I remember my patients, after laughing sessions with me, if you will, were able to walk 5 times as far as previously. And they were able to act in a way that they couldn't before. For example, be independent, climbing the bed versus needing assistance. Anyhow, definitely the humor had powerful, profound influence, and not just on my patients, but also on the cohesiveness and cooperation and the whole atmosphere and energy of the team I was working with. It was being noticed in various ways, to the point that I was being asked to present to various healthcare professionals on the power of humor and in communication and how it affects our mental and physical health. One of the people who got my attention was Jill Bolt-Taylor, a brain scientist who, in her book, describes her situation. This woman, who was a brain scientist all her life, experienced massive stroke in the left side of the brain. And her testimonial matches the testimonials of my patients. My patients would quite often say something like this to me: "You walk into this room and I feel better." As a young therapist, I never paid attention to these statements, but over years, I finally started realizing that there's commonality to this. And why would my patients describe me this way? I had no idea what I was doing for them to get attention. But Jill Bolt-Taylor, and in her book, she describes exactly what my patients were commenting on. What she testified to, as she was unable to perceive the world through her left brain, which basically is the brain which recognizes the meaning of the spoken words, because the speech center was totally affected by the stroke, which in her case was placed in the left side of the brain. She ended up perceiving the world very differently. And in her book, she describes how she perceived the world. She perceived the world as an interwoven collage. And all the people who were coming to her presence were either giving her energy or draining her out of energy. Those who were in a positive state of mind, who were friendly and compassionate, she received very differently. After being in the presence of those people, she felt uplifted, she felt energized. People who were stressed, who were demanding on or insisting on her contribution and participation without patience, without positivity within them, she describes as draining her. She, as a scientist, confirms that what I already observed, that our worlds are structured basically on the left side of the brain. As you can all probably relate to, our organizations are structured and our schedule is structured in a very linear form, from A to B to C. We have plans, we have agendas and timelines which we are going to meet. And make no mistakes, healthcare providers are also working along these frames of the hospital setup. But the way that Jill was perceiving the world was very much so differently. She was perceiving it from a right side of the brain, which works like a parallel processor and basically is receiving information and recognizes only this present moment. She became so empathetic to the point that she was able to hear and feel emotions and thoughts of other people who were around her. And this is what my patients were testifying to over and over in my practice over years. Hence, when I came in a positive state of mind with positive energy, they were responding to it in such a positive way. The right side brain is working like a parallel processor. And it is kind of working out of our awareness. If I asked you right now to close your eyes and take a moment of silence and pay attention to sounds which are perhaps nearby you or in a distance, let's give it a try. Close your eyes and listen to the sounds which are around you. This information was coming to your brain, to your mind all the time, although it was totally out of your awareness. Over time, physicians and nurses were recognizing my ability to connect with my patients. And if in this particular situation, I remember I was being called to address anxiety of a patient who just underwent surgery and basically had a life-threatening situation. He woke up after surgery, and when he came to, he was engulfed in anxiety. All it took for me is to come to his bedside with the calm demeanor and calmness within me and ask him would he be willing to participate. And he said yes. All I did, I drew his attention to the sensations in his body. I was asking him, can he feel where there is a pressure of his body, let's say his heels onto the mattress or the position of his arms. I drew his attention to those. And this is what I actually did. I shifted him from the left brain, which was creating future and thoughts of how things are going to be, and with that created enormous fear about what will happen in the upcoming hours and days in his recovery time, and frankly, fear of death. And when I shifted him through this simple exercise to the right side of the brain, he immediately calmed down to the point that he fell asleep within 7-8 minutes of our interaction, to everybody's amazement. This is the power of engaging the right side of the brain. Jill, in her communication, in her situation with the left side of the brain being affected, she also describes how powerfully she was receiving the 85% of communication, which is nonverbal. She was very attuned with people's body positions, facial expressions, the smallest signals which we are sending unknowingly, which are conveying truthfulness. Studies are being done about patients who have stroke in the left side of the brain, how accurately they can detect and spot a liar, someone who is deceiving, who is not coming with congruency of intentions and words. And because they are so clearly detecting the micro signals which we give away regardless of our intention to camouflage it or pretend, that's how powerful communication from the right side of the brain is. I mentioned to you a little that there is a huge difference between the left and the right brain. Well, study shows that 85% of us are basically left brain dominant, meaning that this is the brain we are operating from. And even people who are left-handed, one would think that the dominant side of the brain is right brain. No, 60% of left-handed people are also having left brain dominance. What is telling us? It is telling us that our society is basically structured and runs on the left side of the brain. There is no doubt about it. Our institutions are created in such a way. We are working on schedules. And this recent pandemic, when our schedules were totally thrown off, when the left brain couldn't make a sense of what was happening, so many people were terrified because that's what the brain created as a future and the plans, and suddenly everything collapsed. The way to engage the right brain is through various activities, which I mentioned to you later. But one of the greatest scientists of all time, it was Albert Einstein, made this statement: the intuitive mind is a sacred gift, and the rational mind is a faithful servant. We have created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. And I want to share with you a butterfly story about one of my patients. She was a lady in I would say like late 60s. She came to the hospital with heart attack. And when she was in my care, she shared with me that one of her loved ones committed suicide. And there was no doubt in my mind that that trauma she experienced, losing loved one so suddenly, had impact on her physical health and caused her a heart attack. On my first arrival to her bedside, we connected, obviously, and when I was leaving her bedside, her room, I blew a butterfly kiss on my departure, saying goodbye, and making this comment. I'm here for 29 years, and I never blew butterfly kisses to my patients. I don't know what's going on. Our interaction went on because she was my patient, and I saw her for quite a few weeks, actually months. She went through horrendous complications. She lost one of the limbs to amputation as a complication after the surgery. But she didn't have to, it wasn't just the only thing she was dealing with. She had so much on her plate because the person who, in her mind, caused the distress of her loved one, which resulted in suicide, was still in her life. And she had to come to terms and continue the relationship with this person. So she had a lot of psychological trauma and things to deal with. I've seen her regularly. We talked about various things, and it was on the last day, on the day of her discharge, that I typically would blow the butterfly kiss towards her. And that day, she disclosed this to me. She said, you know, Zofia, that loved one who committed suicide had a butterfly tattoo on the shoulder. How did I know this? I knew this because my intuition was in full working, if you will. Because by then I practiced all the things which I'm going to share with you to be fully engaging my right side of the brain and be connected with the world around me in a way that I never imagined possible. But that laughing yoga created that first connection, and I made the point of never losing it. So therefore, the perception and experiences of life are very different. They are not linear. The right brain is always in a present moment. It shows how everything is interconnected. If you ever allow yourself to take practices and shift into the right side of the brain, you will see how everything is interconnected. Synchronicities, serendipities are taking place. Life is truly magical. With the right brain experiencing life in the present moment, there is no fear of the future. There is trust that as we experience life being interconnected with the right people showing up at the right time and the right messages being given to us, we see that life is way more than the logical left side of the brain is making us to believe. I would like to remind myself and you that Albert Einstein made actually this statement once, that when he's trying to solve problems and he is thinking about them, quite often he's unable to. And when he goes into peace, the answers to his puzzles and problems or things that he's trying to solve are coming on their own. And I believe that that was a clear statement that when he shifts into right brain, when he's connected with something much greater than the logical explanation of life, that's when he finds information that majority of us and people in his field were unable to access. I'm not funny, people tell me, Zofia, how do you expect me to be funny? Why would I want you to be funny? Because when you are operating from the right side of the brain, you are in a state of joy. And humor definitely gives us this opportunity. It allows us to look at the same situations from different perspectives. It connects us to creativity, problem solving, and all kinds of possibilities, which the rigid left side of the brain doesn't allow us, not being flexible enough for it. So when people ask me how I'm supposed to be funny, Zofia, this is usually the advice that I give people. I started with laughing at my own mistakes. So being new Canadian many years ago, 34 already, and hardly speaking the language, you can only imagine I made quite a few of those. I remember I heard about coupons somewhere, and the next day after I heard about coupons, which would minimize the expense on my groceries, for example, I found paper in my mailbox. So I took this paper, I opened it up, looked to me like coupons. I took scissors, I cut them all up, and had a whole stash of coupons, as I believed. Went to grocery store only to find out that I cut up an ad paper. We can laugh at our own mindsets coming from different culture. There are differences which were very normal in the country where I'm from, and I'm sure many of us known or heard or experienced them. But then you come to new country with different culture, and that was norm in one is not necessarily norm in another. So for example, one of the shocking discoveries when I came to Canada was that I am to remove hair on my legs and on my body, because that's the norm in North America. In my Polish culture, the longer the furrier, the darker the hair on women's leg were, the sexier we were considered. So you can laugh about these mindsets, because when you think of it, it is all man-made rules, which are challenged at times, as you can only imagine. And what's norm in one time might become not necessarily the norm warm in another place or another time. Wrong words. Well, I am famous for using the wrong words. I remember going to an event a few years back. I was invited to an event, and I met a lady at the parking lot, and she asked me as we introduced ourselves to each other, and we were looking for the door to how to get to the event. She asked me this question: do you sit on a board? To which I replied, being shocked that she's asking that question, I usually sit on a chair. She didn't take it too lightly. Shortly after I realized what board she meant board of directors. But you see, being humorous like this, and this humor showing up at that parking lot gave me amazing opportunity, because once inside the event, I used that story from that parking lot, and I was telling everybody how I was being asked if I sit on the board, and my answer was, and everyone was laughing. From one person to the next, I was introduced to various leaders, and you wouldn't believe I was actually invited to sit on the board of corporation as a result of making that connection and fun out of my own mistake, if you will, in that parking lot. Then once I started practicing in these situations, I figured maybe I should start with my family and friends. And I would advise you, if you have teenagers, don't bother, because they will not, your children, especially if they're teenagers, I don't think they will find you funny. But I started doing this also in unfamiliar places. I started doing this in public places. So one day I was on the elevator, actually in the hospital. And as you can tell, there are lights which are showing which floor the elevator is going to next. We were going up, actually. And there were two displays of the numbers on both sides of the door. And I was actually standing and facing the door. And behind me, there was about, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 people. And at some point, I don't know how it came to me, but I said, and what would happen if these two numbers on left and right of the door wouldn't match? And one gentleman behind me piped out, we would be going sideways. And the whole group laughed. So these are the places when you can practice. And yes, being humorous requires courage. But this is one of the biggest virtue that you need into, if you would like to be successful. Courage is the biggest virtue to be practiced. So conscious, practicely, like I did, put yourself out of comfort zone, and then reflect. If it failed and it didn't bring the result that you wanted, then how can you change it? How can you tune it? And then before you know, you can repeat it again, and in no time, you will find being successful. These practices of humor with my patients led me to amazing places. Here you see me with David Suzuki. He came to event. He was a speaker at that event. And the board of directors welcomed him. Everyone was standing in the hallway, and there was silence. No one knew what to say. And I came to him. I don't even know how it came. I guess this practice of humor all these years and creativity piped out. And what I said to him was, Mr. Suzuki, I quite often see you in my living room. To which he replied, this is pretty good, because most people tell me I visit their bedrooms. And we started laughing. We made connection, and you can tell by the time he was signing book, we were quite the chums, and he was joking that he's going to ask me for contact information. Anyhow, I realized that humor is such a powerful tool, communicational tool, because emotionally charged situations are commended to our long-term memory. And when we laugh with someone, we connect. There's the trust we were talking about, and connection that builds between people who are laughing, and we stand out. We are memorable, especially when there's not enough laughter in this world. So if you engage in humor, you will see that it will open all kind of doors to opportunities. There is a joke for you. Singing in the shower is all fun until you get shampoo in your mouth, and then it becomes a soap opera. Earlier, I promised that I will let you know how to engage the right brain. I noticed in my personal life, and research confirms that if we take about 5 times a week, 20 to 30 minutes to engage in activities, which are right brain activities, we will be activating that side of the brain. One of the things is singing, dancing, participating in laughing yoga, which I mentioned earlier. You can enroll in stand-up comedy classes. What about gratitude journal? Gratitude journal. Many people who practice this at the end of the day or at the beginning of the day, they start with maybe 3 things. They jot down about what they appreciated and enjoyed in their life. And the more powerful it will be if you will recall situations which are associated with positive emotions, because it is the experiences of the senses which are so powerful in engaging the right side of the brain, because that's how it processes the reality around us. Spend time in nature. Hence my trips, countless trips throughout Manitoba during COVID. I was interviewed on radio programs here, local radio programs, quite a few times about why am I doing this? And continually I would be saying, because it is an activity which is addressing the mental health. Because when I was going on my trips, I was not really fully planning them. I would stop, I would be spontaneous. I would stop in places that I never intended to. I would meet strangers. I would talk to strangers, all activities which are very mentally healthy. And as a result, I started making documentaries and short videos, which people enjoy throughout Manitoba. And I imagine not only some of my videos were being viewed by quite a few thousand of people. And I knew that my creativity was flowing from the right side of the brain. Hence, I can say that I had very harsh experiences throughout COVID, and the fear that majority of people were experiencing, I didn't share them. And not that life spared me from losses. I was actually, and here I share some rather personal story. I met a man who I was in love with. We were dating for 8 months. He was actually my companion, and we were enjoying the trips together. And suddenly he had a heart attack, and within a week was gone, and he passed away. But being and working with my dying patients and engaging in the right side of the brain and experiencing life on a much deeper level and holistic level, if you will, helped me to go over the grieving in a relatively smooth way. I truly believe that I already sensed intuitively that something was coming to an end before his passing, and all this experience and the easiness in letting go and grieving was a result of me perceiving and operating in my life from the right side of the brain. While eating, pay attention to the taste, because all these sensations of our senses, it's when we really pay attention and attune with them, they are definitely activities to engage the right brain. So, like I mentioned, the patient who was engulfed in anxiety, and when I sat by his bedside and asked him to pay attention to the sensations of his body, where there was pressure points, where the leg was heavily resting on the bed, all of this engaging and paying attention to the senses. Something as simple as walking outside and feeling the breeze on your face is engaging the right side of the brain, because you are fully in the present moment. When you're listening to music, and that's why music is so uplifting and energizing, because the brain is not awaiting for the next tone, the next note. The brain is fully engaged with this particular moment, and hence why it is so uplifting and energizing. creative activities, something like making videos or movies or documentaries like I did, or something as simple as writing a poem, painting a picture. And it doesn't have to elaborate and professionally looking, as long as we engage in creative activities, because that's when we engage the right side of the brain. And if you have a moment, if you experience anxieties, something as simple as paying attention to slow breath, getting in, holding it for split seconds, and breathing out, it has fascinating influence on our anxious mind. Be silly, be playful. Children know how to do it. If you have grandchildren, make the point of spending time with them, because they give all us adults ticket to being playful and having fun. And this is what the right side of the brain is. It's creative, it's out of box thinking, it's associated with problem solving, with seeing things through different lens. At work, I have to tell you, it was intentional. When I became playful and humorous, I would bring jokes to work. I would tell funny stories, quite often embarrassing stories about myself. And over time, I saw how my intentional bringing lightheartedness to work and humor and laughter and engaging my colleagues with this, how it was expanding, how people were, from being rather reluctant, engaging more and more and more. It came actually to the point where we were singing together. Remember that Kit Kat's advertisement, give me a break, break me of a piece of that Kit Kat bar? We were singing songs together, and it had fascinating impact and results, because we were engaging from right side of the brain, and joy was present, laughter was present. It was energizing us as a caregivers. It was bringing us together, and it was being noticed by my superiors and leaders of the corporation under which I was working in a hospital. And I was invited to speak on how powerfully I was influencing and able to engage my colleagues in the organization where I was working. As I mentioned, humor elicits cooperation, innovation. It builds trust and sense of belonging. And it was, again, Albert Einstein, one of the best scientists of all times, who said that creativity is intelligence having fun. So with all the knowledge that we have, we can still engage in fun. And I wonder if at this point we could go to breakout sessions. And if you're willing to participate in this fun exercise, there are 2 lines here. And I wonder if you can create at least one more with your buddies who are going to end up in your breakout room. I don't know if people who are setting it all up can put us into breakout rooms. And I wonder if you can take pen and paper and basically create another line similar to these 2. She fell in love with an electrician and she got shocked. She fell in love with a crane operator and got let down. Can you create another line like this? Equally fun and playful?
Okay, I will create the breakout rooms then.
Thank you.
Okay, so there will be around 3 to 4 people in each breakout room. How's that?
Yes, that sounds great. And if you can share one of these creations with us later, and that's what it is about being creative and having fun. So please read it again. She fell in love with an electrician and she got shocked, or she fell in love with a crane operator and got let down. It can be he, it doesn't have to be she. So please write whichever story you want and share with us. We'll give you what, 5 minutes?
Sure.
Okay.
All right. Zofia, you can join a breakout room too if you like.
That's what I'm trying to do.
Does it say to join?
Yes, it is inviting me, but
Okay.
I'm trying to put my cursor on it and I can't find my cursor. I would love to join one of the rooms. Can't find my cursor. Doesn't want to cooperate.
Press escape in the top left of your keyboard, maybe.
Oh, I found it now. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So I hope you had fun. The idea was to have fun and to be creative because that's exactly how we engage the right side of the brain. And I wonder if you would be willing to share some of your creation with the group as you came back here. I believe my partner in crime is willing to share some of the things we created. Yes. So raise your hand so the people who are arranging all of this behind the scene will put you on speaker and you can share some of our creation.
All right, Nancy, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and please share.
Hello. Yeah, I was in a room with Carla and it was kind of interesting what came up because first of all, we weren't really calm, right? We felt a little bit stressed, but once we started, bringing in the humor, Carla came up with something. And then it was interesting because we were both kind of nervous. So I was nervous I would forget it. So I wrote it down. But it was really showing what Zofia was saying, when we're not, when we're not nervous and the humor wasn't flowing, it took a little bit to just get in the moment. And anyhow, what Carla came up with was really cute. We kind of judged it a little bit, but then we decided to go with it. She fell in love with a veterinarian, but got replaced by a dog.
Did you have more than one?
No, it took us a while to get to that one, Sophia.
Yeah, but you did. That's amazing because you were basically two strangers, right? That just met each other.
We were. And then we had a really nice lighthearted conversation after that. So yeah, it was good.
Interesting what humor can do. And anybody else, raise your hand. So maybe you would like to share your creation. Anyone else willing?
All right, Clarice, can you please unmute yourself and share?
Yes, I was with Sophia in the room, so he's very creative, and we had created 10 in 2 minutes. So wow. I'm gonna just say one or two. So she fell in love with a firefighter, and she got burnt.
Oh.
And I like this one. She fell in love with a carpenter, and she got nailed.
Oh my God. That was good. That was a good one.
We also had one. She got in love with pilot.
A pilot?
She was
a pilot?
for me?
She was she fell in love with a pilot and she got taken to great heights.
Yes.
That's good. That's good.
Anybody else eager to or willing to share what came out of your breakout session? That's okay. Why did we engage in this silly activity, you would say? Do you know that engaging in such a silly activities actually enhances your ability to problem solve? Because problem solving is linked directly with creativity. And that is what humor allows us. Humor is creativity. We're looking at the same situation from different angle and we're finding humor in it. And that's what I was doing with my patients. I remember working with a young lady who was very lethargic. I think she was giving up on life. When I came to her bedside, she didn't want to talk to me. And over a few visits, she started talking to me. And eventually she was willing to go for a walk with me. And you know where we found humor? She told me eventually that she saw down a hallway a very handsome patient in one of the rooms. And I used to say to her, why don't we go window shopping today? We don't have to buy. She was a married woman. And that created bond between us and fun. And that was one of the reasons she was getting up. And we never saw this man, but we created that fun. So in an environment which was heavy and stressful, and she didn't know where her life is going, that gave her this oomph to motivation to go through humor. Years later, actually not that long ago, I heard from her, we connected on Facebook, and she told me how powerful that humor was in the time when she was willing to give up on life. So humor also allows us to reframe stressful situations. My story is when I was once stopped in the traffic, I basically forgot to pay driver license and registration in my car, and I was pulled to the side right in front of Centennial Concert Hall, which is basically in the core of Winnipeg. At 5 o'clock, when the traffic was just crawling by and every nose was by the windshield or by the window watching me, I was stopped by the the policeman. I realized only then and then that I didn't pay my dues and I'm in a big trouble. He ordered a pickup tow truck to pull my car, and I was able to shift the whole situation into fun because the policeman was actually from Germany, so we had something in common because I'm originally from Poland, and we started talking about this, and then he advised me to pay my dues the same evening so it looks good when I get to the court. My tickets, 4 tickets, added up to 1,300. You could have had a heart attack with this, but when I got into that tow truck, the young man had a disc of Celine Dion on the floor, and I said to him, is this actually a disc or just cover? He said, disc. I said, play it. She's my favorite. What a lucky day it is. So he did. He pulled my car in front of the house. I said, you heard the policeman telling me I should be paying tonight. Can you drop me off by the agency? Which he did down the hallway. As I walked into the place, I said to the lady, oh my gosh, I didn't activate my new visa. And I said, I'll run home and I'll bring it. I still have 15 minutes. She said, no. And the ladies in the agency guessed the year of my new credit card and I was able to pay. And actually, when I end up in the court and the lady judge was in front of me, she asked me, what is the cause of me not paying for it? And I said, the only explanation I have is I am living with teenager and my logic is through like out the window. I completely forgot that I'm supposed to do it. Anyhow, long story short, my tickets were reduced to $300. And here I used all my practices with my patients. I put it in a time which theoretically could have been very stressing and depressing. But the truth being told, I didn't know that the outcome can be actually so amazing. And I could have stressed myself at the very moment when I was pulled. I used to joke to the tow truck guy. I used to say to him, how they say, bad publicity is still publicity. Anyhow, we were laughing. He said to me, lady, I never seen anybody getting 4 tickets for this amount and having so much fun. I said, you know what? I work with dying people. I know life is short and sometimes there is no point of stressing too much. So I created within myself, I created that situation that I had positive emotions associated with relatively stressful situation. And that's how powerful humor is. It can reframe the situation and create fun and positivity and humor. And that's what I was doing with my patients in the situations when they were facing their own mortality, when they were giving up on life, when they didn't want to move and go through the pain of fighting back into life. Humor was that powerful tool, which was taking them just into this present moment, and they were dealing just with this moment, and they were uplifted and they were energized, and the results were just fascinating. So I don't want to put you on the spot. Oh, something happened here. This is the way to go. I was intending to ask you to share your stories, because I'm sure we all have stories which are in the moment rather embarrassing and heavy, but from perspective of time, they become source of fun and lightheartedness, and we laugh at ourselves. And actually, the safest humor, it was not that long ago that I was presenting to executives, CEOs, and presidents of various organizations. And I was talking to leaders that they need to lead by example. And there's less and less humor because we are afraid to hurt another, or we are afraid to be inappropriate or being judged, or all kind of reasons we're not having fun and humor and playfulness in life. But no one denies us if we share our own stories. When we share our stories, because it's vulnerability, it links people together. It shows that we are all humans. We all make mistakes. I'm pretty sure that many of you here got ticket in lifetime. If not, you're pretty good. I probably cashed yours instead of you. But the idea is that when we share our own stories, our humorous stories, other people can relate to it. And I literally had executives coming forward and sharing in front of other executives all kind of potentially embarrassing stories from the past, which now became a source of fun, including receiving tickets, making odd phone calls to the wrong number, saying the odd things, which were awful. I actually had one of premiers of our province here sharing with me once how he went to another country and he was being asked what is the meaning of the name of Manitoba, and he totally seized and he couldn't come up with the answer, being a premier of the province. And by the time he was sharing with me that story, we were laughing about it, because it just showed you he's a human being like everybody else, and that's the power of humor. You can tell that over time I became a very shy person. I was at the TEDx here in Winnipeg, and people were taking pictures with the word TED. I don't know if you know what TEDx is. It's a conference major cities throughout the world have. Speakers go on the stages and present, and I decided I'm going to have pictures taken holding the letters this way. And it was very interesting how it created a lot of interest from people around me. I think they were assuming there will be some kind of performance coming up. I learned in the process as I was engaging and learning and studying and presenting on humor, that humor is actually used in international negotiations. It actually allows us to express our point of views without harming another in a playful way. Somehow we are more open, because the very hormones and the substances in our brain are setting us in a position that we are more willing to embrace, listen to, take on a perspective of another. There is a lot of myth about humor. There was myth at my healthcare system that if there is fun at work, work will not be done, which couldn't be further from the truth. One of the things professionals are afraid to engage in humor because they're afraid that they will not be taken seriously and silly. But this research shows that the leaders who are humorous, who are fun, and they create amazing atmospheres, they have very great results as a teamwork and creativity, because they're leading by example. And people say, I don't have time for humor. And the truth being told, once you become creative, you can see it everywhere, because like everything else, once the brain is prompt, it's like the expecting lady will see expecting women everywhere around her, because she will focus on this. Once you start paying attention to humor, it will basically show up everywhere around you. Humor dumps. Never at the expense of others. So when I teach about humor, it is always about me, Zofia. I share my stories. Yes, it takes vulnerability, but that is linked directly to being courageous. Wrong time, wrong place. When patients were engulfed in a pain, I wouldn't be coming here with knock-knock jokes or trying to crack a joke, because humor is directly linked to observational skills and awareness of the present moment and the unfolding around us in this moment, what's taking place. Never at someone's beliefs, culture, or tradition, something important to others. And maybe you can answer it to your
Zofia, can you please unmute yourself? Okay, let's just. Zofia, can you please unmute yourself?
right now. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can now hear you. Okay, now you can share.
Okay, so where's the camera not working? Can you bring me back to my camera so I can
You have to turn on your camera yourself. You can see your maybe share the screen. That's okay. We had a good time. We were sharing jokes. No worries. We had a good time. We had a good bonding time. We talked to Nancy, Ranjit, and Gracie. Everyone shared little bit stories. So we had a. So thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk to each other.
Can you hear me? Can you
Yeah,
hear me?
yes, we can hear you. We can see your slides. Go ahead, please.
You obviously know how I look, so maybe you don't need to see me. Okay, the idea behind humor is such that most people are afraid to be humorous, and we're losing more and more the contact with our right brain and its perceptions, and life is becoming more and more difficult. We are all sitting in plans and structures, and we're losing that lightheartedness. Humor is more important than ever. There is humorophobia, fear of punishment at work, fear of loss of control, which is absolutely ridiculous. I was talking to leaders about it, and those who are using humor and in the organizations have fascinating results of innovation, creativity, out-of-box thinking. People feel that they are inadequate. They feel that will be made fun of, looking silly. But when you stay within your mind and decision that you are going to continue like this, it's amazing. It is really igniting other people. It gives people permission to be themselves. It really affects people in so many positive ways, and I've seen it in various situations. You can put humor in your physical place. You can use humor as a tool rather than a weapon, getting at others. There is a lot of wrong way of using humor, and that's why the safest humor that you can use is about self. And once you build the trust with another human being, they will start participating. And I believe when I was absent, when I was blocked out, you had a great time. There is one of the jokes that I like to share. I know it's not the clearest. I spent half an hour trying to talk with them, waiting to learn about the culture, wanting to learn about the culture, and the bartender cut me off and told me these were patio umbrellas. Speaking about perspective. You can be creative sending pictures to your bosses if you are wanting to pretend that you are sick, or you can put it on a board at work and basically, indirectly send messages through humor to people about, humor can be a very indirect and uninvasive way of sending messages to others or putting them in check without being threatening. And here's another laughter joke. I'll let you read it. My wife asked me why I spoke so softly in the house. I said I was afraid that was listening. She laughed, I laughed, Alexa laughed, and Siri laughed. Why humor is so important? My friend Barbara, she runs her own corporation, businesswoman, very successful one. We were talking about humor and its power, and she literally asked this question. She says, why humor is so important? And Siri in her room answered, that's an interesting question, which tells you machines will never measure up to the human capacity, capability of being creative and humorous, because when you think of it, all of this came from creativity of the right side of the brain. I mentioned earlier about all the activities you can engage, I am willing to, you can start meetings with humorous stories or your own stories. You can joke, tell people that if they have extra coffee, they'll have extra break, whatever. There's no end to creativity. I have to tell you, with my creative movies and films from across Manitoba, I had audience from politicians, leaders, business owners. My videos went across oceans to different continents and different countries. People were sharing because people needed to be uplifted and see something of a beauty and fun, and we can all do it. We all have this potential. Now I am open to questions.
All right, thank you so much, Zofia. If anyone has any questions, you can either raise your hand or you can unmute yourself and ask away. So yeah, the floor is open.
Maybe if you're not ready, what comes to mind to share with you, one of the poems, you probably saw the poster behind me. I published the best-selling book of poetry inspired by my dying patients. And I am going to read you one of the poems, which is describing a state that we can all arrive to and experience. The title of the poem is It's a Cool Place, and the book of poetry is entitled Unexpected Gifts. It's a cool place. I am in a place which no eye can see. I am in a place where everyone is meant to be. I am in a place where everything makes sense, where nothing goes by chance, where my heart is ready, where the course is steady, where everything is clear, which doesn't know fear, where everything is just, with no existing must, which is filled with joy, where no one needs toy, when there is no soon or late, where no one has a mate, where there is no time, where boredom is crime, where everyone can get it all, where no one is too small, where everyone is put at ease, where all desires cease. Everyone has the right to hear the guiding voice. Everyone has the right to use their choice. Everyone has the right to find the key. Everyone has the right to come here and see. This place has many different names. I hope you'll read 10 clues and take a chance to find this cool place.
Thank you very much for the poem. So the event is about to end in a couple minutes. So if anyone has any burning questions, please ask away. You can unmute yourself and let us know.
All I want to say, really, I had good time. Thank you, Zofia, for sharing your wisdom, sharing the humor. That I know that it could be very stressful in this kind of difficult times, but the way you defined, I really motivated. I'm really inspired, enjoyed. Yeah, your wisdom stories, your witty way, taking home pinky hugs, or, all kind of stories, and the poem. So where can we see your book, though? Just wondering.
Well, you can check Amazon.com. It was available there. Unexpected Gifts by Zofia, Monica,
Okay.
with K in it, Dove.
All right, so maybe I will have a look. And can we contact you, Zofia, for if we need for you for the future events, or how to contact you?
Absolutely. If any one of you is interested in sharing something with me, feedback or questions, or you maybe can think about what organization, what group of people would benefit from this, who is undergoing through stress, who could learn and be equipped and empowered by this presentation, please don't hesitate to either call me. My phone number is 204-794-7153, or you can email me at zofia.dove@gmail.com.
Would you be okay to write in a chat box? Do you have access to chat box?
Let me see.
Yeah, please write your email if they contact.
Maybe I'll repeat it because right now there is problem here. Zofia.
Okay, you know what? You have my email address. Send it to me. Then if the people want, they can send it to us. Right,
Yes.
Zavaria? They can send it to us,
Yes,
and we
they
can.
Yes.
Yeah, that sounds great. All right. If there's no questions, I had a really awesome time listening to your presentation. I think everyone can agree this is actually a really great event. I had a lovely time listening to everyone's stories. Sorry, Zofia, you could not hear some of those funny things that we were talking about, some of our experiences. Some of us talked about laughing yoga and how it helped them. And so, yeah, this was an amazing event. Thank you so much, Zofia. We'll definitely have you in the future. And thank you everyone for joining us today. Please check out our website for more events just like this. And yeah, we'll see you for the next event. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you.
For listening.
Mhm.
Thank you.